Jung's most disturbing discovery wasn't about anger management. It was about people who never get angry, and why this strange immunity makes them psychologically untouchable. In his clinical practice, Jung documented patients with what he called emotional impermeability. These were individuals who remained perfectly calm when insulted, unbothered by criticism, and immune to other people's attempts to provoke them. They never took things personally, never reacted defensively, and seemed untouched by the emotional triggers that ruled everyone else. Jung found this disturbing, not because they suppressed their emotions or practiced detachment, but because they had undergone a deep psychological transformation. Other people's behavior had simply lost its power over them. Their inner state was sealed off, giving them what appeared to be a supernatural level of emotional freedom. Today, I'll reveal Jung's most unsettling discovery about people who never get angry, and the psychological process he believed could make anyone completely unbothered by the actions of others. The case that first revealed this began with a patient Jung described in his private notes, a successful businessman who came to him in 1919, not because he was suffering, but because his complete lack of emotional reactivity was making everyone else uncomfortable. Let's call him Heinrich. He had built a steel empire in post-war Germany. His employees feared him, not because he was cruel or violent, but because nothing could shake him. Insults bounced off. Criticism made him curious, not defensive. Betrayal intrigued him, instead of wounding him. It was his wife who finally brought him to Jung, convinced something was wrong. "Doctor," she said, "my husband doesn't get upset about anything. Yesterday, I confessed I've been having an affair for 6 months. Do you know what he asked me? 3 questions. Was I happy? Did I need anything from him? And did I want to continue the marriage or end it?" But here's what Jung discovered that changed everything. Heinrich wasn't emotionally numb. He wasn't suppressing his feelings. Instead, he had learned to see his triggers as mirrors, reflections of parts of himself he hadn't yet faced. Jung called this the shadow mirror effect. Every person who angers you is showing you something about your own unconscious mind. The rude coworker who dismisses your ideas, they're reflecting your fear of inadequacy. The friend who's always late, they're mirroring your need for control. The family member who criticizes your choices, they're exposing your own self-doubt. Heinrich mastered this principle after a devastating betrayal 3 years earlier. His closest business partner had stolen his biggest client, nearly destroying his company. Instead of seeking revenge, Heinrich asked himself one question: what part of me is this person reflecting? The answers shocked him. His partner's greed reflected his own suppressed fear of poverty. His dishonesty mirrored Heinrich's tendency to hide his true feelings. His betrayal revealed Heinrich's own hidden capacity for selfishness. By facing these shadow aspects, instead of projecting them onto others, Heinrich achieved what Jung called psychological immunity. He could see other people's behavior as information about them, not attacks on him. Jung turned this into a structured method, which he called the shadow integration protocol. Whenever someone triggers you, ask yourself 3 questions. What trait in this person am I judging most harshly? Where do I show this same trait, even in small ways? What is this trigger trying to teach me about myself? Take Sarah, a marketing manager. She was constantly irritated by her colleague Tom, interrupting her in meetings. Using Jung's method, she asked, "What am I judging in Tom? His need for attention. Where do I do this?" She realized she often dominated conversations when she felt insecure. What is this teaching me? That her anger at Tom was really frustration with her own attention-seeking. Once Sarah owned this shadow aspect, Tom's interruptions stopped bothering her. She saw them for what they were, his insecurity, not an attack on her worth. That's the power of the shadow mirror. It transforms triggers into teachers. But Jung's research uncovered something even more disturbing. Those who achieved emotional impermeability had discovered a hidden psychological space most humans never access, the gap between stimulus and response. Heinrich described it like this: "Doctor, when someone insults me, I feel something strange. Time slows down. I see their words coming toward me, but instead of striking me, they hang in the air. In that moment, I have a choice. Do I catch these words and make them mine, or do I let them pass through me?" Jung realized Heinrich had stumbled onto what he called the reaction gap, a space where conscious choice replaces unconscious reaction. For most people, trigger and response happen as one continuous event, but for these rare individuals, awareness slips in between the two. This shattered psychology's assumptions. We believed anger was automatic, that triggers inevitably cause reactions, but Jung's patience proved otherwise. With the right training, anyone could access this gap and choose their response. The technique Jung developed was deceptively simple yet profound. He called it the observer protocol. When triggered, you don't react. You step back. You observe the trigger as if you're watching a movie. Notice the other person's words, their body language, their emotions, but most importantly, observe your own inner reaction without becoming it. Jung documented countless patients mastering this skill. Take Maria, a teacher. Her principal's constant criticism used to wound her deeply, but once she shifted into the observer position, she saw what was really happening. His stress, his pressure from the school board, his insecurities. From this perspective, she responded with empathy instead of defensiveness. The key insight Jung left us with is this: you are not your emotions, you are the awareness that observes them. When anger arises, it is information, not identity. You can choose to act on it, study it, or simply let it pass. Heinrich had mastered this ability so completely that he described himself as psychologically transparent. Other people's negativity passed through him like light through glass. He wasn't avoiding, denying, or suppressing anything. He was simply refusing to identify with every emotional impulse that arose within him. But here's what Jung found most disturbing about this state. Once people developed it, they often lost interest in the petty dramas that consumed most human lives. They stopped caring about being right, about winning arguments, about proving their worth. This made them extraordinarily powerful, yet it also isolated them from those still trapped in endless cycles of reaction. The observer protocol, Jung discovered, could be practiced by almost anyone. With consistency, many of his patients accessed what he called the reaction gap within weeks. The process was simple but profound. Pause when triggered. Take a conscious breath. Observe without judgment. Watch both the trigger and your inner response as if they were playing on a screen. Choose your action. Respond based on your values, not your impulses. This wasn't about becoming detached or emotionless. It was about reclaiming authorship of your responses instead of remaining a victim of your reactions. Jung's research into emotional impermeability revealed another striking pattern. People who never grew angry had built what he called boundary fortresses, invisible psychological walls that determined what could and could not enter their inner world. Heinrich once explained this fortress to Jung. "Doctor, I learned that people can only disturb my peace if I allow them. Their words, their actions, their emotions, these are external events. They only become my inner experience if I choose to internalize them. This idea revolutionized Jung's understanding of human psychology. Most people, he realized, have completely permeable boundaries. They absorb other people's stress, take on their emotions, and allow external events to dictate their inner state. But those with emotional impermeability had constructed selective filters. Jung documented 3 distinct types. The relevance filter: they absorbed only information that served their growth or goals. Everything else was acknowledged, then discarded. The ownership boundary: they could separate their emotions from others' emotions. When someone grew angry at them, they recognized it as that person's anger, not their own anger about that person's anger. The identity fortress: with a solid, anchored sense of self, criticism could not shake their core. Feedback became information, not an assault on their worth. Yet Jung also uncovered a disturbing consequence. Those who built strong boundaries often became magnets for people who lacked them. Toxic personalities, energy vampires, and unstable individuals were drawn to their stability, craving the balance they could not create for themselves. Heinrich experienced this constantly. "Doctor," he said, "ever since I stopped reacting to provocation, people seem more desperate to provoke me. My calm unsettles them more than anger ever did." Jung realized why. Emotionally reactive people regulate themselves by feeding on others' reactions. When Heinrich denied them this fuel, they were forced to confront their own instability. This insight became the foundation of what Jung later called the boundary fortress method, which rested on 3 strategic practices. The emotional firewall: before entering a situation, decide which emotions you will allow yourself to feel and which you will merely observe. Response selection: predetermine your responses to common triggers. In the moment, you are not reacting impulsively, you are executing a chosen, value-based response. The identity anchor: maintain such clarity about who you are that external opinions become data, not threats. Consider David, a software engineer constantly stressed by his demanding boss. Using Jung's method, he built an emotional firewall. Each morning, he decided, "I will observe my boss's stress, but I will not absorb it." He pre-selected calm, professional responses to criticism. He anchored his identity in competence and growth, not approval. Within weeks, David reported feeling untouchable at work. His boss's moods no longer hijacked his peace of mind. More surprisingly, his boss began treating him with greater respect, as if sensing David's new psychological strength. This revealed a paradox. The stronger your boundaries, the more others respect them. People instinctively adjust to psychological strength, but Jung's most unsettling discovery went deeper still. It was something he called projection reversal. His immune patience had developed the ability to see through emotional attacks, straight into the wounds driving them. Heinrich once described it during a session. A business rival had humiliated him publicly, branding him a heartless profiteer who cared nothing for his workers. Instead of anger or defense, Heinrich felt only curiosity. "Doctor," he said, "this man's words revealed nothing about me. They told me everything about him." His accusation of heartlessness showed his fear of being seen as unfeeling. His focus on profit revealed his own financial insecurity. His sudden concern for workers betrayed his guilt about mistreating his own. Jung realized Heinrich had cultivated what he calls psychological X-ray vision, the ability to pierce through surface attacks and glimpsed the hidden wounds beneath. Here was the disturbing truth. Most conflict was not between people, but between projections. Criticism of your appearance comes from someone insecure about their own. Attacks on your success come from frustration with their failures. Harsh judgments about your choices come from doubt about their own. And once you could see these projections clearly, it became nearly impossible to take attacks personally. Instead, you began to feel compassion for the pain that fueled them. Heinrich described this shift powerfully. "Doctor, when someone attacks me now, I don't see an enemy. I see a wounded child crying out. How could I be angry at a child for crying? Instead, I wonder what hurt them and whether I can help." This, Jung believed, was the highest form of psychological immunity, when every attack is understood as pain, not truth. When you can see others' self-aggression as expressions of their wounds, rather than judgments of your worth, Jung wrote, you become completely unbothered by their behavior. The projection reversal technique rested on 3 simple diagnostic questions. What quality are they attacking in me? Where might they be struggling with this same quality? What pain or fear might be driving their attack? Take Lisa, a graphic designer, who was devastated when a client called her work completely unprofessional and amateur. Using projection reversal, she walked herself through the questions. What are they attacking? My professionalism. Where might they struggle with this? She remembered the client once confessing to feeling like an imposter in their industry. What pain drives this fear? The terror of their own unprofessionalism being exposed. This realization transformed Lisa's reaction. Instead of collapsing under the criticism, she recognized it as the client's projection of their own insecurity. She addressed their concerns calmly and professionally, all while preserving her inner peace. But Jung warned there was a dangerous side effect. Once you learn to see through people's defenses, relationships can become difficult. Everyone starts to look less like equal adults and more like wounded children, lashing out from old pain. Heinrich admitted this to Jung one evening. Doctor, sometimes I feel like the only adult in a world of hurt children. I see their pain so clearly that I struggle to take their behavior seriously. Jung realized this was the hidden cost of psychological immunity, a clarity about human nature that could easily harden into detachment. The challenge was not to lose compassion, to see the pain, but still honor the humanity of the person behind it. Jung's final and most disturbing discovery went even further. His patients hadn't just learned to avoid being triggered, they had developed what he called emotional alchemy, the ability to transform every trigger into psychological gold. Heinrich explained it simply. Doctor, I no longer see difficult people as problems. I see them as teachers, bringing me exactly the lessons I need. The more someone triggers me, the more valuable they are to my growth. This was a complete reversal of ordinary psychology. Most people avoid triggers, avoid conflict, avoid the ones who press their buttons, but Heinrich sought them out. Instead of enemies, he saw unconscious allies, delivering the exact challenges he needed to evolve. The process he described was methodical. When triggered, he didn't just resist reaction. He asked, what is this person teaching me about myself? What weakness are they exposing that I need to strengthen? What shadow aspect are they forcing me to confront? This was emotional alchemy, a practice that turned every negative encounter into fuel for growth. Jung realized it created individuals who were almost impossible to manipulate, control, or defeat emotionally. Why? Because they had transformed every potential weakness into a source of strength. You already sense this truth. External validation can't inflate you because you don't depend on it. External criticism can't deflate you because you turn it into growth. This is not emotional armor. It is transformation. Jung described 3 stages in this alchemical process. Trigger mining, actively extracting insights from every person who disturbs your peace. Shadow integration, using others' behavior to identify and heal your own hidden wounds. Strength synthesis, converting each discovered weakness into a developed strength. Marcus, a sales manager, put this into practice. He was constantly triggered by his team, stress, laziness, and excuses. Instead of managing his irritation, he asked, "What are they teaching me? That I expect others to share my drive without considering their motivations? What weakness does this reveal? My inability to inspire rather than demand. What strength can I develop? The ability to motivate through connection, not pressure." Marcus studied motivation psychology, learned to tie his team's work to their personal goals, and soon became one of the company's most effective leaders. His greatest frustration became the catalyst for his greatest growth. But Jung issued one last warning. People who mastered emotional alchemy sometimes grew detached from those still struggling. They risk seeing life less as human connection and more as a psychological experiment. Heinrich confessed this danger himself. "Doctor, sometimes it feels as if I am running an experiment, not living a life. Every interaction becomes data, every person a case study." Jung realized the final challenge was this: not to become cold in the pursuit of clarity. The true goal wasn't invulnerability, but anti-fragility, growing stronger and more compassionate through every challenge. As Jung wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." True immunity required embracing both strength and vulnerability. The ultimate stage of emotional alchemy was what Jung called compassionate immunity, a state where your psychological strength doesn't distance you from others, but allows you to help them, where you no longer fight human drama, but transmute it into wisdom, into growth, into compassion. Heinrich eventually discovered that true immunity was not a shield, but a bridge, one that helped others build their own resilience. Jung's final observations about emotional impermeability revealed its ultimate purpose: not to escape human connection, but to engage with it from a place of psychological strength. He called this stage the compassionate warrior, a person who could remain untriggered while still caring deeply for others. Heinrich's transformation into this warrior unfolded slowly. At first, his calm was unsettling, even threatening. People mistook his unshakable composure for coldness, but with Jung's guidance, he realized something profound. Immunity was incomplete if it only protected him. "Doctor," he reflected, "I realize true strength means creating space for others to feel their emotions without judgment, while I remain centered in my own." Jung documented how Heinrich began to apply this. When his wife expressed frustration, instead of distancing himself, he stayed present, holding space for her emotions without being consumed by them. When employees brought him their problems, he listened fully, without taking on their stress. This was the paradox Jung uncovered. Ultimate emotional immunity doesn't mean transcending humanity. It means embodying it more deeply. The compassionate warrior can feel another's pain without drowning in it, witness chaos without becoming chaotic, and offer support without being drained. From these insights, Jung developed a method he called emotional aikido, the art of using the energy of emotions to heal rather than resist. Anger could be redirected into solutions. Sadness could be transformed into compassion. Fear could be alchemized into wisdom. Heinrich mastered this so profoundly that people sought him out during their darkest moments. His presence alone calmed their inner storms, and yet his gift came not from detachment, but from mastery, feeling everything, yet being controlled by nothing. Jung's final notes reveal the ultimate secret of emotional impermeability. Heinrich had learned to love humanity while remaining untouchable by its chaos. This, Jung believed, was perhaps the highest psychological achievement, complete vulnerability fused with complete invulnerability. The businessman who once couldn't be bothered became Jung's greatest case study in human potential. Heinrich proved that emotional immunity is not coldness, but strength so deep it makes warmth possible, even in the middle of another person's storm. Jung's most disturbing discovery was not that some people never get angry. It was that this ability reveals the vast, untapped psychological potential inside every human being. The real question isn't whether you can develop emotional immunity. It's whether you're willing to claim the psychological power that already belongs to you. Remember Heinrich's final insight. Doctor, I learned that true strength isn't set about what cannot touch you. It is just about what you can touch without being changed by it. Your journey begins now. Every trigger is a teacher. Every difficult person is a mirror. Every challenge is an opportunity for alchemy. The only person who can disturb your peace is the part of yourself you haven't yet understood. Take Jung's disturbing discovery and make it your liberating truth. You have the power to never be bothered again. See you in the next dimension.